Almost a year ago now, I talked about these guys for the first time. These skeletons, who have an uncanny resemblance to the rock, both being ancient, crusty, and filled to the brim with unknown substances, have plagued my interest since Elden Ring first released over 2 years ago now. The DLC trailer dropped over 2 months ago, and there's some really heavy implications for the giants in that trailer. Not to mention a prophecy I discovered and translated actually holds some more secrets towards the giants, which is really integral to their story that when I first made the video over a year ago I simply did not know about. Without any further dilly-daddling, please sit back, relax, grab some prawns if you want, and enjoy as we delve into these giant skeletal bastards. For a long time now we've been wondering just who on earth these guys are, and I think I really do know who they are. I think these guys are ice giants. Now you might be thinking, just Gecko, what the fuck do you mean ice giants? That has nothing to do with the lore. Where does it ever say there's ice giants? Well, if we were talking about classic item descriptions, then yeah, you'd be completely right. There is no mention of ice giants. But around 6 months ago, I translated the map obelisks. The map obelisks, if you don't know, are the places where you grab the map fragments, which allow you to see further bits of the map. Contrary to popular belief, the map obelisks aren't actually reused stock images. They are completely unique, and after weeks of translating, I did translate it. It's mostly, in my opinion, comprised of Futhark and its various different forms. There's also apparently traces of Middle Eastern and Mediterranean languages on the tablet, although I can't personally tell you if this is the truth because I don't have any expertise in that, but if you do, I highly recommend going to check it out. Interestingly, upon this tablet is also an unknown language. I personally like to call this Elden Futhark. It's a language that appears all throughout Elden Ring, most notably, other than the map obelisks, being Marika's bedchambers, where it can be found on the tablets. The reason why this is so important is because in Futhark, every single character has what it translates to, like a letter, but it also translates to a phrase, and that phrase also has a meaning behind it. And using these meanings, we can piece together a story which is located upon the map obelisks. This gets even more interesting when you realise that upon these obelisks, they have an obsession with ice, and more specifically, ice giants. They talk about ice giants' wealth, they talk about the ice sun, they use the letter for ice, and then they make symbols that look like great runes. It sounds so batshit insane, but I am genuinely telling you the truth. You can go and translate this for yourself if you don't believe me. Now there is so much more to this, but I want to tackle a question you might be wondering. Why on earth do I think these ice giants are these big skeletons? Well, my reasoning for believing this is, we know that giants as a species tend to evolve a lot. We go from fire giants to trolls. It's this sort of evolutionary path, so it only makes sense that fire giants weren't necessarily the first evolutionary step and that there was one before it. The best candidate of that being these giant skeletons. Not to mention, in Caelid there is actually a troll which stands guard behind this skeleton. Of course, yes, it could be a big coincidence, but I really don't think so. Evolution occurs when change is needed, when their environment changes and they need to adapt to their environment. And I think exactly that is what happened with these skeletons. Now, if we look at the skeletons, we'll find that most of them actually have brambled branches and roots curling around them. Most of them also have their eyes pierced by these brambles. Now, what do we know about fire giants? Well, their eyes are super important. Their chest eye holds the fell god's eye. Considering the power of eyes, it's only fitting that that would also be the same for this primordial form of the fire giants. And we actually see most of these giants with their eyes being pierced by bramble thorn roots. Now this is really, really important because the fire giants are also pierced by brambled swords. For a long time, people have always assumed that this was something to do with the Briars of Sin, and I completely agree, but I think there's also something more to this. This seems like some kind of vendetta. Eons ago, they slaughtered and killed these original ice giants, and then they did the exact same to the fire giants. Who killed the fire giants? Well, the Golden Order. So that makes you think maybe, just maybe, someone that is closely related to the Golden Order might have something to do with the disappearance and death of these skeletons so long ago. Now these skeletons have been there for a really, really long time. Most people, including myself, have come to the conclusion that these giants were there long before the Golden Order. So how on earth does that play into the fact that maybe someone related to the Golden Order had a hand in these skeletons' disappearance? To answer that question, you've got to remember that the Golden Order is headed by Marika, who is a god. Now, what do we know about gods? Emperyans are ones who are chosen to be the next god. Who's to say that Marika wasn't once also an Emperyan and is part of a long line of Emperyans dating back time immemorial? We know Marika is from a different world. She's basically regarded as an alien along with her people. So maybe, just maybe, she's part of this long line of gods in this other world before coming to this land. But that doesn't explain how the Golden Order, or at least someone closely related to Marika, slaughtered and butchered these ice giants. Well, maybe, just maybe, Marika wasn't the first person to set foot in these lands. Who's to say a denizen of this different world, perhaps even one of Marika's own family members, ventured here long ago, and their result was this slaughter that was of the ice giants. After all, the very same bramble roots which are piercing these giants' eyes are also seen in places like the Round Table Hold in the form of spears. Although we've talked about the fact that maybe a member of the Golden Order's past was responsible for these giants' deaths, I don't actually think the fire giants' deaths, or at least the ones in the mountaintop of the giants and around there, were from this same person. The spears used to pierce the fire giants are very, very reminiscent of Messmer's spear inside the DLC trailer. Messmer is symbolised in all promotional images and the DLC trailer. There's also the fact that the spears which are used to pierce the fire giant's fell eye actually have brambled roots on them. Not to mention there's also a really weird symbol on the hilt that when I first mentioned it, people said it was just some symbol from the Blood Star. But I think, now that we've seen the DLC trailer, this might actually be Messmer's symbol. Personally, to me, it seems like Messmer is copycatting his ancestor, recreating what his ancestor did thousands, or hell, millions of years ago. I actually want to play devil's advocate for a minute and say that maybe the fire giants and the ice giants are related, but are on opposite sides. The reason I believe this has mainly to do with the Zamor Knights. Now, the Zamor Knights are heavily related to ice sorceries. They are also stated to have been the enemies of the fire giants for a very, very bloody long time. But apart from that, we really don't get any information, and that is really, really bloody strange. The only other people that really get that treatment are the skeletons in Nokron and the Eternal Cities, and the giants located in Caelid and the mountaintop of the giants. Just why? Why are the Zamor Knights and the fire giants enemies? Well, we know that the trolls betrayed the fire giants. It goes in their heritage to, guess what, betray their own. And I think that is exactly what happened. Maybe after the collapse of this civilization and the death and slaughter of so many of their own, there was a few that remained. Only their descendants of the ones who remained decided to instead side with the ones that killed their ancestors, perhaps in a way to survive. A little treaty, if you will. Join us or die. And maybe the followers who remained with the ice giants became the Zamor Knights. Hell, who's to say that the death of these fire giants that are pierced by these spears weren't some vengeance kill for their betrayal of their ancestors so long ago? If it was Messmer's spear that killed these fire giants, then that makes me think that maybe he was allies with these ice giants. Now I know the Golden Order waged war on the fire giants, but how much do we really know about that? We are just told from a few item descriptions, and who's to say these item descriptions are even the true reaccountments of what happened? Who's to say they aren't lies in themselves to make the Golden Order look like this all-powerful being that just slaughtered with ease this civilization? This is further reinforced when you actually look at the Blood Star. The Blood Star is in direct opposition to the Golden Order. The briars of sin that we find all around and by these actual fire giants that have been killed are heretics. That's what the briars of sin are. They are heretics who have been branded with thorns in their eyes, and from this pain came the Blood Star. It's in direct opposition to the etiquette of the Golden Order, and yet they are located right on these spears and seem to evidently have some connection to it. Even outside the mountaintop of the giants, in the Briars of Sin camps, the same spears that pierce the eyes of these fire giants can be seen in their camps. There is an evident connection here, and I really don't think the Golden Order was actually responsible for the death of these fire giants. But I don't think they were solely responsible. I think a member of the Golden Order's blood was actually the one to kill these fire giants, but I don't think it was by the command of Marika. Instead, I think it was by Messmer the impaler, treating them to 19 inches of his impaling rod. Now that we've associated Messmer, the ice giants, the Zamor knights, you might be thinking, oh well, there can't be any more people related to this, but you'd be completely bloody wrong, as Elden Ring is once again going to go batshit insane, crazy style. Upon the map obelisk tablet, it talks about the ice sun. I briefly mentioned it before, but it talks about how the ice sun hails strength. It talks about the ice sun. Now, I'm thinking that maybe this ice sun might have something to do with the eclipse. Now, an eclipse is when the moon eclipses the sun, sort of giving a dark sun. Doesn't the term ice sun sound exactly like an eclipse? A sun devoid of the light it normally has? I don't know, maybe I'm thinking too much into it, but it sounds exactly like an eclipse. Who wants to bring about an eclipse, and whose people also exist in the direct area of where these skeletons are? Well, none other than Castle Sol. Now, I know there's the Eclipse Shotel, but maybe the term Ice Sun is just some really, really old, ancient term before they thought, hey, let's just call it the bloody Eclipse. Now, you've got to think, the Lands Between is not at our technological point in the world. It's not a modern day world. It's still very much medieval. They don't have the proper scientific resources, so it's only fitting they'd come up with some sort of name to call an eclipse. Now, who's connected with the eclipse and wants to bring it about? Well, you've got Miquella. So that means Messmer, Miquella, the Ice Giants, the Zamor Knights, they're all connected together. Now, if you want even more proof, Commander Nile at the top of Castle Sol uses ice sorceries, which, as we know from different sectors, these sorceries and incantations are very key to the culture. What they are, those incantations and sorceries, heavily reflects what the outer god or the sector represents. For example, like Saint Trina and how all her stuff is to do with sleep. Mohg has his blood sorceries and incantations. It's all connected together, and I don't think this is any exception. This has so many implications as a whole. This means that Messmer and Miquella are possibly on the same side. We know there's some sort of war going on inside of the Shadow Realm, and we always thought maybe, oh, it's going to be Miquella versus Messmer. But if this is the case, then that means that isn't the case. There is someone else in the Shadow Realm that is going to be on this opposite side, and I think that is going to be the final boss. From Software never shows their final bosses in their DLC trailers, so why should this be any exception? If you want even more proof that Miquella has something to do with this, there is actually a line that says, Sol, Horse Gift, Ride, Ice Lake. If we go to Castle Sol and look at the map, we'll find that there's actually an ice lake right next to Castle Sol. And if we go to this ice lake, then we'll find that the first church of Marika is actually located here. Now, who's a horse gift? Well, we're gifted Torrent. We know that Miquella is perhaps the first owner of Torrent. Too big of a coincidence, especially considering the location? I don't think so. I think this is directly intentional. And I actually think this might be where Torrent first came about. Or at least first came into the possession of Miquella or someone before Miquella. I know this is all crazy, and it sounds crazy, and it is 1000% crazy, but I genuinely do believe what I have said in this video. Of course, don't take everything as 100% fact, as no one can be sure until the DLC comes out. Something that's really cool that I noticed was, you know, in Caelid, you've got these giant skeletons. And a lot of people have thought that these calluses on these giant skeletons were from the Scarlet Rot. But if we actually go to the mountaintop of the giant ones, there is also these very same calluses. Now, of course, bits and pieces are going to be the Scarlet Rot, but there are these certain calluses which are also on the ones inside the mountaintop of the giants. I think this might be a side effect from the brambled thorns going into their eyes. I don't know what it is, but it might be something similar to the Scarlet Rot in its affliction. Hell, maybe they didn't directly die from the stab to the eye, but it was this virus that eventually did them in. Sadly everyone, that is the end of the video. If you did enjoy, please consider leaving a like and subscribe, as it greatly helps the channel and it lets me know that you're enjoying this style of content. I really enjoyed making this one, as I do with every single video. As I mentioned briefly before, In the pinned comment and at the top of the description, there will be a link, a Google Docs link, to my transcription of the tablet. Now please bear in mind that this is going to be a bit of a batshit insane transcription. I had a bit of a weird way of going about it, but there is some keys inside the docs to help you understand what's actually being said and why. Before I go, I just wanted to say thank you so much for all the support on the last video. It's got like 70,000 fucking views and that is absolutely insane. I honestly can't thank you all enough. It means the absolute world to me. Anyways, I'm going to try and not hold you any longer. I really do hope you have a great rest of your day. Please don't go hollow, and yeah, may you find your worth in the waking world. Goodbye everyone.